set up is view distance. So we can see here under top right systems SAEF modules, we have right at the bottom view distance. So we can select that guy and we just pop him down in sort of the spawn area. Then we open that up and the default should be fine. But if you're doing a mission that's like heavily focused or entrenched in towns, or like something where you need to lower the view distance or maybe boost it a bit, you can do so here. By default, we leave the server and player view distance at 1,200 meters, so that's 1.2 kilometers, and aircraft view distance at 5 kilometers. So obviously you can change this. Be very wary. The higher the view distance, the worse the performance. The lower the view distance, the better the performance. So for missions that are like heavily object dense in towns or whatever, you can bring down the view distance here. Shadow view distance, I've selected some fixed settings. The higher the shadow view distance, the lower the performance. I suggest leaving it at 50, but you can bring it down to 25 if you want, or push it up to 100. But keep it at 50 if you can. And then the fixed ceiling, what this is when you place this view distance module, it creates an event handler effectively that controls your view distance based on how high you are. So this aircraft view distance is the cap of the automatic view distance. When you're in an aircraft, the higher your aircraft, the higher your view distance. This ceiling is where it caps to 5,000. So between, I think it's between about 10 meters and 150 meters, in the case of this fixed ceiling, is how it'll scale. It'll linearly scale your view distance. So when a helicopter comes into land, the view distance will come down, providing a better performance for the helicopter closer to the ground, able to make landings without a lot of lag, that kind of stuff. And then the higher they get, the further away the view distance, everything's already at a low LOD from that high up. So your view or your performance tends to be better. You can up that to 250 if you'd like a longer curve basically between getting the view distance to come up or go down, and you can bring it down to 100 if you want a quicker increase in view distance. By default, 150 is probably fine. Okay, after view distance, the next thing we need to do is respawn. This is a little bit more complicated, but also pretty dead simple. So you place the respawn module down. By default, the type of respawn is set to wave. You can set it to timed. Timed is a very simple type of respawn. It'll just open the respawn every X amount of minutes or whatever. But for the sake of this mission, we're going to do a wave respawn. With wave respawn, the time the time a person may wait in the wave respawn loading screen. So a wave respawn is triggered when the player threshold is met, which is down here, set to 5 players at the moment. You can up it or lower it. Minimum is 2 players, maximum is 10 players. The player threshold is set to 5 at the moment, which means as soon as 5 people die, it'll open the respawn after the penalty time has been set, right? If that threshold is not met, you still need to limit the amount of time a person spends waiting for respawn, right? They can't just sit and wait there forever until 5 people die, because in the case of low casualty missions, we might, not lose enough people. So what you do then is you set this time. That's default respawn time. It's how long it takes for people under the threshold to wait for this timer to reach 5 minutes and respawn them. If for whatever reason the threshold is met, it cancels this timer and immediately pushes into penalty time and then respawns the players anyway. But yeah, that's the background about how the wave respawn works. These default settings I find are fine. You can turn off the penalty time if you want to no penalty, which is to say that when a person dies, they don't add to the penalty time, which means as soon as 5 people die, it'll just straight respawn them. But the penalty time is useful to encourage the players to try and value their lives. The max time is 15 minutes. So say somebody's been waiting for 5 minutes already or whatever, and then there's a squad wipe and 10 people suddenly dump into the respawn screen. The penalty time will shoot up based on the amount of people that died. If your penalty time is set to 1 minute per person, that's another 10 minutes added to the 5 minutes or whatever your max time or your base time was. This max time is there to make sure that you can only spend that long waiting in the respawn screen. So no matter the case, no matter how much penalty time has been added, no matter how many people have died, the maximum amount of time you can spend waiting for a respawn is 15 minutes. So 15 minutes is probably fine. It's unlikely it'll ever get that high with the penalty time set as 30 seconds unless you lose 20 people or something crazy like that. So we'll just leave it as is. Hold time is how long the respawn is open for. Minimum 30 seconds, maximum 1 minute. That's just so that if somebody dies during the open time for respawn, it'll auto respawn them. Yeah, so we're just going to leave it as default. But what we need to do, because technically the mission quote unquote hasn't started until we enter the AO, you don't want people who are quote unquote late joiners or have had technical difficulties or whatever when trying to join in while we're still briefing and prepping our plan and stuff to get stuck. So what you need to do is you need to take this respawn module, you need to go to your AO and place a trigger. You can put the trigger down and probably 1000 by 1000 is enough, but we'll see now. Set it to any player type present. Sorry, that's bad value. Let's do 15 by 15. Okay, so as soon as a player enters this trigger, so which is to say they've left the briefing area now, we're going to take this respawn and sync it to that trigger. So the respawn now will only get activated once a player hits this trigger, which is just to say, okay, we're going to hold the respawn until such time as the players have entered the AO. Okay, so that's configuration. I'm just trying to think if there is anything else we would like to do. Ah, right, vehicles. Okay, so when you're thinking through your scenario flow, right, you will most likely want to have a way to reinforce your people, right? So generally, as I said earlier, like right at the beginning of the video, when we think through mission flow, we think of how we may want to reinforce the players. In this case, as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna let them reinforce by means of a vehicle or by means of a set of vehicles. So we will have an LAV crew, right, which will have space in the back of their vehicle, so if necessary they can drive back to base, pick up the respawns, take them forward again. However, if we wanted to enable these guys to push out on their own with their own vehicles, we'll need to create a handler, or we'll need to place some vehicles first and then create a handler for those vehicles so that they can respawn them if they die and stuff like that. You know, like if we have these vehicles we want to be able to use if we lose them for whatever reason to anti-tank fire or something like that, we want to be able to use them again, right? So we do that here. So the first thing I'll set up is first thing I'll set up is the LAV. So we're gonna go to we're gonna go back to our objects and then blue 4, and then we want to find the US Marine Corps Woodland. We want to go to APCs and we're going to take an LAV 25, so we slap that down over here. So we've got an LAV. This is what the crewmen will have available to do their things. It's a pretty, I mean, it's a stalwart of the Marines, right? Like when you see an LAV, you expect to see this guy. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna place a like a respawn point, quote unquote, and for that we're gonna use a helipad. So you can see here that you have like a set of helipads. Like if we put a square helipad down, this is what that helipad looks like, right? But we're not going to use this helipad because it it doesn't look great on the ground, and it doesn't make sense. What we're going to do is we're going to make it an invisible one, so it'll hide the helipad instead, but it'll still function as we need it to function. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our systems. We're going to go to the SAEF umbrella for the systems, and we're going to get these 3 modules: the SAEF rearm and repair core, the rearm and repair object, and vehicle rearm and repair vehicle. So we'll put down the core module, we'll put down the vehicle module, and we'll put down the object module. We're then going to synchronize both of our modules to this core module. This core module has some optional stuff. We're actually going to use this now. I'll show you how. But we'll come back to this in a second. And then what we're going to do is we're going to synchronize the object, which is the place where the respawn and repair can happen, to the helipad. And then we're going to synchronize the the vehicle rearm and repair for the vehicle to the vehicle itself. So what this does is it generates a handler for rearming, repairing, and respawning this LAV. We'll do the same thing for the Humvees and whatnot. So before I push further forward, what is quite nice to do is to provide, what's the term for it? Is to provide rearm capabilities with these vehicles. So if we need extra magazines, extra missiles, extra med supplies, stuff like that, it's useful to have them in a vehicle that we're going to have in the AO with us. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a module that does that because that's quite complicated. But what I do have is a script that is in the template file that you can use. So I'll show you that now. Right, so in your mission file, under scripts/vehicle, there's no other scripts in there at the moment, so you should find it fairly easily. There is a file called inventory.sqf. Inside that file, there is a section for the type of inventory you're requesting. So it's a string you pass in. For non-encoders, a string is just a word or a set of words or characters in between quotes in encoding, effectively. So it's a string of characters. And then, of course, the vehicle that you're requesting be added to this vehicle inventory or to execute the script. So what you do here is you can see there's already some pre-placed stuff. This is just to show examples of how to like add this stuff, right? In the default ammo thing, you have how to add weapons, how to add ammunition, how to add grenades, and then of course how to add medical. You'll probably be able to just leave medical as it is here, because this is a fair amount of extra medical supplies. But for weapons, ammo, and grenades, you'll most likely need to alter this based on the equipment that you're bringing into the mission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a loadout. Let's take the rifleman loadout, for example. And I'm interested in adding some of these extra magazines and smoke shells. So let's go grab those. We're going to go pull them into our inventory script. We're going to put them underneath the ammo. And then we just need to rewrite them in the format of the stuff above here. So for the ammo, we're going to be introducing 2 magazine types. Let's make it 3, in fact, because we're going to be 4, because we're going to be adding extra ammo for the small here too. Then we're going to add some extra grenades. So I'm just going to leave it as we're adding smoke shells and M84s, which are flashbangs. So this add magazine cargo global, this adds a grenade, and then this is the number of them to add. So for smoke shells, or for hand grenades, we're adding 20. For smoke shells, we're adding 20. For flashbangs, we're adding 20. In this case, we want to add 40 regular magazines and 40 tracer magazines. This over here, this weapon is a dumbfire rocket launcher, so we can actually leave this here because we want to add a couple extra dumbfires in case people need them. And then what we want to do is we want to go to our anti-tank, we want to go to our assistant anti-tank loadout, and we want to grab the class names for the small extra stuff, so we can add more small rockets and tracer rounds. So we can just replace these because we don't need them anymore. We can add, we shouldn't be adding a lot of these because a lot of rockets are, it's a lot of rockets. So we'll add 10 of these and we'll add 5 more tracer mags. So what we've done here is we're adding to this vehicle, we're adding 5 extra rocket launchers. To the magazine, for the magazines in this vehicle, we're adding 40 of each of our tracer and regular round types. That's more than enough. In our cargo, we're also adding 10 more small rounds, and oh no, that's the wrong class name. I nearly missed that there. We want to grab this class name and pull it back across the inventory. We're adding 5 tracer small rounds and 10 rockets. We're adding 20 grenades, 20 smoke shells, and 20 flashbangs, and maybe because while you guys weren't looking, or I cut away, I added some grenades to the squad leader. We maybe want to include a couple rifle grenades as well. So we will add let's call it 20 more rifle grenades and 20 more rifle smoke grenades. So there and there. So that should be more than enough ammo for you to rearm off of the vehicles, and then we'll apply this to the vehicles now. So I'm going to show you how to do that too. Okay, so you can see over here there is a how to call, which is this is how you would execute this script via, just like a regular script. But because we're using the rearm and repair module, we need this thing to kick off when the vehicle rearms, and we also need to kick off when the vehicle respawns. Otherwise, it'll only execute right at the beginning of the round, and then we'll lose the quote-unquote context when the vehicle respawns later. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this full line, and we're going to go back to ArmA. We're going to go to the core rearm and repair module, and then in additional scripts, we're going to open square brackets, and we're going to paste this guy in here. We're going to wait, no, actually we need to, hold on. We're going to open square brackets, and then we're going to open it again, because this thing takes more than one script. We're going to paste this guy in here. We're going to remove the semicolon, because the script parser is not going to like that, and then where it says execvm, we're going to replace it with a comma. We also, in this case, do not need to include the vehicle, because the vehicle will get passed in automatically for us. So we'll just remove that, and all we're going to say is we want ammo. And this ammo corresponds to this, our inventory script, where you see this case says ammo. It says, in the case of us wanting ammo, we do this to the vehicle. So that's what we're telling it to do. And then, because this is an LAV, and only the crewman should be able to interact, which is repair, rearm, and respawn it, we're going to get the class name of a crewman by logging the class of this crewman to the clipboard. Then we're going to open up the core, and we're going to add him in here. So, which is to say that for this vehicle, only the crewman may interact with it, which is repair, rearm, and respawn it, all that fun stuff. Okay? So, now that we've done that for this LAV, we're going to want to copy these modules over, because we're going to want to do them for a couple of Humvees as well. So, we've got our module configuration. This thing remembers what we want, except in this case for the Humvees, we're not interested in limiting only to crewmen. Then we're going to go to our Blue 4, we're going to go to the US Marine Corps Woodland, we're going to go to Cars, and we're going to grab a 4D open Humvee. So this is just a run-of-the-mill Humvee. It's got no guns, it's got no this or that, it's just used for transport. We're going to add 3 of them. Then we also need to add our helipads, our invisible helipads to be specific. So let's just add it here. Just as a matter of interest, I'm adding the helipad and then pointing it in the direction I want the vehicle to spawn in. So hold shift and drag in the direction you want the vehicle to spawn in. There we go. So we've added helipads and Humvees. We're taking our core configuration for vehicles. We're applying the object to the helipad and the vehicle module to the vehicle. And we're just going to duplicate this. Oh, these modules have spawned up. You know what, it doesn't actually matter, the position is irrelevant, but so we connect that module to the helipad, and we connect this module to the vehicle, and same thing over here. Oh, jeez. This is our core module, we just put that on the ground, repair module, object, and what's this? This is object, so we want vehicle there, object here. We connect the object to the helipad, and the rearm thing to the vehicle. There we go. So what this will do now is it'll mean that I'll be able to respawn and rearm these Humvees as a regular unit, but I won't be able to do that as a crewman. I'll show you now quickly. The only thing I would like to do quickly is move view distance respawn and the trigger to its own handler. So this is mission config. I'm going to add some other stuff to this file in a second, but we're just going to lock and hide it for now. And then we're going to move all of these guys to their own folder called vehicle setup. Vehicle setup. I know it's kind of tedious me organizing all of this stuff like this, but it's really helpful. It's really helpful for keeping, like track of how you have everything arranged. Just gonna toggle and hide so we don't have those ugly lines, and then we'll just block that. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and load right in. Right, so as I had a slight malfunction earlier when testing the vehicle configuration setup thing, so I'm just going to briefly touch back on it. So we showed the inventory setup and class name setup for the LAV and for these guys. So what I'm going to do quickly is just spawn in as a rifleman and show you. Right, so as you can see here, if I self-interact, I can respawn this vehicle. It's not going to let me while the vehicle is still operational, so keep that in mind. And then also you have the ability to repair it. Repair it will also re-arm it, so give it back all of this stuff that we added in via that additional script. But if we go take a look at the LAV, we should see that I am unable to interact with this guy. So no respawn option and no repair option. And that's because I don't have access because of the class lock that we gave this LAV. So if I jump back out into the editor, takes its sweet time, and hop back in as a crewman. And if we go take a look, after the handler has initialized, which takes a couple seconds, we should have access to it. And there we go. I can respawn and repair the LAV. And I'll also be able to do it for all these vehicles because these guys aren't class locked. So if we go over here and we interact, we'll see we have the respawn and repair option. Cool, and that's all there is to that. Okay, some slight technical difficulties that have been resolved. Right, so that is the vehicle setup. Once that has been completed, there's only a couple more things we need to do. The first is we need to make sure our CBA settings are correct. So to do that, we go to our mission file, we go to CBA settings, and what we've done is neatly phrased all of the frequently edited CBA settings in the right place. So for crew served weapons, we want the AI thing to be active because we want AI, of course, to be manning crew served weapons. The same thing goes for artillery because we want to use the mortar functionality. If you wanted the players to operate a mortar, which is without the artillery computer and so on and so forth, then we need this to be enabled. So as you can see here, it is commented quite nicely that this and the AI one should never be active at the same time. It's like this for both artillery and crew served weapons. Blue Force Tracker you can enable or disable here. Whether or not we want civilian presence to be enabled, so in this case I kind of do. I would like the civilian presence to be active in the town, so that there's, you know, like this element of people live there, we can't just bomb the place. For the Waco's Punish Unknown Weapons, we want to include all of the weapons that are in our loadouts so we don't accidentally block ourselves from being able to use our own weapons. So we'll grab the block, the M4A1 block 2. We will grab the, so I think everybody for the squad leader uses that, and then we will grab the squad leader's rifle, make sure that's included. We will grab the rocket launcher from our vehicle inventory, make sure that's included. We will grab our small, which our anti-tank user uses, to make sure that's the one we want, to make sure that's included. Just thinking, oh, and the crewman uses a different type of M4, so we'll go grab that one as well. And then let's just put this up front with all the other M4s. There we go. Okay, so that is our unknown weapons thing handled. We have civilian presence enabled. We want, okay, so dynamic garrison is a useful tool. Effectively what it does is when you get close to a garrisoned unit, like in their personal space close, it'll ungarrison them. It'll make it makes breaching buildings and general clearance and movement from room to room and stuff like that more dynamic, because you might bump into AI in the hallways and stuff like that. It is quite useful. It's not hugely performance intensive, but it is kind of performance intensive. So you want to, if you have it running, just you must know, or rather you must understand that this adds a handler to every single AI unit that is garrisoned, which means that there will be a slight performance cost to that. It's not a heavy performance cost. It doesn't check very often, but it is there. And if you feel like it's too detrimental to your mission, you can toggle it off. Lastly is the player forceful pardon. Effectively, what this does is when a player has quote unquote killed a civilian, committed a war crime, let's call it that, their rating as a player or as an entity goes down. The lower it goes, the more likely you are to get engaged by friendly forces and also be unable to ride in the same vehicles as your friendly player forces. So what this does is it makes it so that when this is enabled, that can't happen. You should still be able to get in the vehicle with friendly forces or with friendly players. However, it will still trigger friendly AI engaging you, so you need to keep that in mind. That's it for the CBA settings section. There's some more complicated stuff in here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm not going to cover all of it now. There's a lot of CBA settings. But just note that this frequently edited section is really only the thing that you as a mission maker, or rather a novice mission maker, needs to worry about. Okay, cool. Lastly, and finally, we need to get rid of all of this crap. So this mission maker helper, what it does is it alerts you to things that will not respond well to the server, or not respond well on the server. So thankfully what this thing does is it logs it to your logging folder. Oh, as a matter of interest, I should really show you where that is. So when you're sitting in Windows or on your desktop or whatever, you press the Windows key plus R and it pops up in a little run tab. Type in percentage local app data percentage. Once you click that, it'll pop and open your local app data. You go to ArmA 3 and then you'll see a bunch of .rpt files. These are the files that we're interested in. The most recent one is the one from this session that I've been editing the mission in and so on. So I'm just going to pull it across. I've opened it with Notepad++. You can open it with regular Notepad. It's up to you. When that error or that warning message pops up in the editor, it logs it here for your convenience, so you can see, well, what exactly was wrong. So this thing wants a marker called respawn west. This is very important to respawn. If you forget it, the player will respawn on their death position, which isn't ideal if they're in like a bad position. So to do that, what you do is you go back to the map in the editor, or you press M in the editor, will open the map. You go to the top right and you select markers. It's the last tab on the list. You go down to system markers and then you'll see one there that says empty. You select that one, you can put it down over here. You point it, well, you don't necessarily need to point it in the direction. I like to point it in the right direction. You double click it and you change the variable name of this marker to not that, respawn underscore west. Now, west is the blue for side. You can change it to respawn underscore east for the op for side. You can change it to respawn underscore gorilla for the green for side, and respawn underscore civilian for the civilian side. Now, if you want to omit that, which is to say that you only have one playable faction, you can omit the underscore west and just leave it as respawn. You put down a respawn marker. And then what that'll do is it'll see when I save now, that error is gone. The next thing you need to do is add a Zeus module. This is so that you can fix any errors should they happen in game. So to do that, you pop open systems. You go down to the Zeus tab, you find the game master module. You select that, you place it down. You double click. On owner, you want to enter hashtag admin logged. You can see in this little tooltip that popped up that it is there. This will make sure that whoever the admin user is that is logged in will have access. And lastly, you want to change default add-ons to all add-ons, including unofficial ones. This is so that you gain access to extra modules, including the SAEF modules that we've created. So that's your game master module. If you save now, you'll see that error is gone. And then lastly, under systems, there's a sub tag called logic entities. You click that, and then underscore the tree, underneath the tree virtual entities, you'll find a headless client object. We're going to place 3 of them because we now use 3 headless client objects on the server. You double click it, you make it playable, and then you set the variable name of the first one to HC1. Make sure it's all capitals, it's case sensitive, so HC1. And then similarly, you just Control C, make this one HC2, and then Control V, HC3. So now you've got all of your headless client modules. If we save now, no more errors. So this is all mission config stuff, so we can move this to the mission config folder. You see it disappears there. Then we've got the log viewer open. Then we need to edit our description.ext. So this thing adds the sort of like the flavor information to your mission when you're loading in. So to do that, we need to go to Visual Studio Code. Instead of CBA settings this time, we're looking at description.ext. We're going to change the author to whatever your name is. In my case, it is Angus. The onload name will change to whatever the name of your mission is. So in my case, it is Operation Cleanser. The description is whatever flavor text you'd like to add for the description of this mission. So MARSOC Raiders assisted by the US Marine Corps, move, land, yeah, this is probably the hardest part of this whole thing, isn't it? MARSOC Raiders assisted by the USMC, move to take Russian held, what's this, lowercase, Russian held positions on Altus. There we go. And then this overview picture is a path to, so in your mission file, you should have copied this through from your template. You'll see there's an image here called template.jpg, and you can see here this is the image from the template. But if you want to make your own one, it's fairly straightforward. So before I do that, I'm quickly just going to do some extra stuff. So under Intel on the top left, you can pop open this thing. It gives you time of day and so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave the date and everything default. I'm going to change the time of day to, let's try 5 o'clock in the, 5 o'clock in the morning. Let's see how light that is. Yeah, that's reasonable. Okay, so 5 o'clock in the morning. A good rule of thumb is because our our missions are generally 2 hours long, you can check the starting time and ending time of your mission to see sort of, okay, well, how much light is there? And I can see, well, it gets light during the course of the mission, so that's cool for me. So it changes to 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to add a little bit of fog. So let's add that's a lot of fog, but don't worry, we're going to decay it. So fog, and we decay it. So fog decay just means it brings down sort of the overall fog presence, and you can see that in these sections there's still a lot of fog. So we want to bring the fog down a little bit until we just have some sort of peeking through the valleys and stuff. So let's try 55% and then again 55%. So you can see here there's a reasonable amount of fog, makes it pretty to look over the ocean, see the aircraft carrier sort of peeking out of the fog, but it's not, it's not overbearing. And then this overcast is fine. We don't need to bring the sun up anymore. Okay, so that sorts out sort of like some basic mission stuff, and then what we can do with that now is, now that we have quote unquote the mood set, we can go put a unit somewhere and make him look pretty. So let's make myself just a regular rifleman. We can hop into the mission. Okay, we'll wait until the loadout applies itself. Then we're going to open up our camera. You see that on the bottom left. We're going to go find an appropriate position to take an interesting photo. So let's try over here. Now the camera freezes time when you open it, not in multiplayer for obvious reasons, but definitely in single player. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it look like we're moving onto the town. So pop open the camera. You can see there's like He's got some movement going. We get the camera in a nice position. Now you can adjust some stuff with regards to the camera as well, like you can juice the brightness a bit, maybe bring the contrast down some, make the image look a little bit more pretty, you know. Juice the saturation a bit so there's a little bit more color in the image. And we probably want a little bit too much contrast. That's fine, and then bring the brightness up just a touch. There we go. Ah, damn it. All of that trouble and the freaking wacky thing is still there. You may need to leave the group so you don't have anything on your screen. Okay, same deal. Camera. We'll take it from a different angle this time. Okay, so we boosted the brightness a bit, we brought down the contrast a tad, we upped the saturation so there's a little bit more color. Brightness now just a tad, there we go. Maybe we should reduce the saturation a tad, lots of orange. Okay, then we take the screenshot, and then I don't know if you know how to get screenshots out of Steam, but we need to go to Steam, we need to go to ArmA. We go to our manage screenshots, we show that on the disk. It'll pop open a folder for where your screenshot is maintained. We're going to copy this to our mission directory. So you can see Operation Cleanser, images. We put this in here. We rename him to cleanser.jpg. Now ArmA likes its images to be a 1:2 format, or 2:1 rather, in terms of the layout. So I know I have a 2560 by 1440p monitor. So my 2:1 format is 2560 by 1280. But for your 1920 by 1080p screens, it'll be a 1920 by 960 ratio. So I mean, just bear that in mind. And then I've opened it in Paint. You don't need a text editor, or I mean an image editor for this. You just use Paint to resize the image. Close it again. You see cleanse is set up. We're just going to rename this to get the name out of here. Go back to our description.ext folder and put cleanser in as the name instead of template. And then I'm going to go delete the template image. Images are generally large. They make your mission files a bit larger. So you want to clear out any images you're not really interested in. Okay, so we can close Blender camera. It's going to moan about the image not being found, but that's fine. When we return to the Eden editor and load back in, once the description has resolved itself, it'll know the right image file. Yes, thank you very much. Save, description should know. We play single player now, and you can see our image for Operation Cleanser is present. Operation Cleanser by Angus Marsoc is assisted by the USMC move to take Russian-held positions on Altus. Okay, so let's return back to the Eden editor. Cool, so the last thing that we need to do is put map markers down, and then we're done. So, map markers are effectively a way of letting people know sort of what we're looking at in terms of the mission, what the area is, what the scenario is, that kind of stuff. So, in the case of this mission, we can assume that because there's two conventional fighting forces happening, that recon has already been conducted and we're not trying to find anything. We know sort of roughly where the main enemy positions are already. So with that in mind, we can go ahead and mark them pretty much immediately. So I've gone to markers on the top right, I've selected icons, and I'm going to standard drawn. I'm selecting the destroy marker type, and I'm going to rotate it by 45 degrees. And I'm going to call this compound _1. Right, and then I'm just going to mark it as a compound. So when you create a marker with an underscore number, it'll know to generate another number when you Control-C, Control-V it. So if we move to this compound now, it knows it's compound _2, and so on and so forth. In fact, we want compound down there. and then compound. This is more of an HQ, so we'll call this HQ_1, and this is HQ, and we're going to change this from a X type marker to a, let's call it a flag, so that we know is an HQ position. And then we're going to copy this and we're going to make defensive pos position, so def pos position, so def pos_1 defensive position. Now obviously you can add some sort of like flair to how you place these markers or what they look like, and whether or not they have text, like you can have a key or whatever if you want to. It's entirely up to you. This is just sort of a quick demonstration of what this kind of stuff looks like. So we want to make this a defensive position as well. And then we're going to leave one or two of the smaller areas sort of unmarked, just so that it's not like painstakingly obvious where things are and what they are and what they look like and so on and so forth. So we know this is sort of what we're looking at. We know this is our insertion point. We could even call it a beachhead, because it is in fact a beachhead. _1. And we're going to make this the pickup marker type, because this is where we've landed. That's also where we will respawn. And then if you want to sort of like make the AO look more sort of like fleshed out, you can do that. So we can take like this area marker and we can say, okay, well, so I've switched from icons to areas. I've selected a rectangle, and I'm gonna just make this guy larger, so we have sort of like an understanding of, okay, we're not actually in friendly territory, that kind of thing. So we want to just extend this to the factory. If you want to get them exact grid size, if you maneuver the numbers a bit, you can figure that one out. So make it 2000 by 2000. Position is 2100. And I guess 4000 on the nose. There we go, see, perfectly grid sized. So we can copy this, we make it up for, and we make it a grid instead of a solid brush. You can see there's like, okay, that's not friendly territory. And much the same, we do this down here. Okay, so I've done all the markers. I'm gonna take this, hold on, and move it to its own layer. Again, not entirely necessary, I like to do it. And then I like to split the markers by what their function is. So sometimes you might have markers for system purposes or whatever, like the respawn marker is a system marker. We move that to its own folder called system, and then you can individually toggle the layers. So if you don't want to see the AO, for example, you want to lock these out of the way, you're not interested in looking at them right now, you can do that, but they will always show in mission. Oh, another function of the empty markers while I'm thinking about it. You see this empty respawn marker? These don't show on the map, which is why they're useful for things like respawn positions and whatnot. Okay, so I've got a checklist here that I'm looking at that again will be in the document that ships with this video. The only thing left to do, of course, after having accomplished all of this, is we need to actually test our mission. So once you've gone through the process of setting all of this stuff up, you need to load in. You can make yourself invincible. I'll show you how to do that now. And then you can go make sure that the AI is spawning where you expect them to spawn, that the counterattacks are happening when you expect them to happen, that the mortars are firing when you expect them to fire, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to do a little testing session now, but you can end the video here if you'd like to go about testing on your own and you have some other ideas and stuff like that. This, up to this point, is how to do everything to set up a mission. There should be nothing else left to do. Aside from, of course, getting it on the server, but an admin will have to help you with that, at least for the time being, until you're more comfortable and you feel you can start handling this kind of stuff on your own. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into testing, and you can watch, hang around, do that kind of thing. But if you're not interested, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please talk to me. I'll try and answer them as best I can. Again, there's a lot of information on the GitHub. Link will be in the description on the layout of the functions, how to use them, specifically the loadout helpers, because that was the bulk of the coding we did. All of that is going to be there, so that you can look at it and understand, okay, this is sort of what I'm trying to accomplish. And also, for people unfamiliar with coding or who don't spend a lot of time coding, the GitHub might be a little bit of a rough place to start, because there's a lot of very complicated stuff that's going on over there, which is why I've moved a lot of the tool sets we do have and use frequently into modules, so they're very easy to understand and use. But if you have any questions, please just let me know. I'll try and answer them. You can speak to Fritz as well. Though he hasn't spent a lot of time with these modules. I've only just finished working on them. But he's very knowledgeable about ArmA and how this stuff works and how to set stuff up, so you can speak to him if you need to. Okay, cool. Anyway, with that out of the way, and without any further ado, let's go take a look at the mission. So that code that I've just typed into the debug console there, that is what makes you invincible. Very useful for debugging missions. You don't accidentally die while you're checking stuff out. I'm quickly going to pop open Zeus, just take a quick skidoo around, make sure everything sort of looks kosher and looks good and stuff's in place. And okay, so let's get a bit closer, try and start kicking off the spawn, shall we? Okay, cool, we got our garrison. That garrisoned this building quite nicely. Doesn't appear like they've triggered as expected. There's no patrol going on over here, which is good. We don't want a patrol to happen over here. I actually just want to check that the mortars have spawned in properly, that they're there and present. Yes, they are. That's good. Okay, we can see some patrols have been created. These guys are on the move. They're ready to start patrolling and make sure that they're patrolling properly. You can see that the patrolling system knows to avoid water. It doesn't. We don't necessarily want to have our patrollees go having a swim or anything like that. It's not ideal. Okay, so let's move myself a bit closer. We want to get in range to start triggering QRFs and mortars and stuff. But that BTR has been manned, as the gun has. Oh, it sounds like a helicopter. Oh, hello. Oh, mortars are firing. Well, we know those are working. That's next doors. Any of these guys have an RPG perchance? He might just be an ammo bearer for an RPG guy. Oh, he is. Invincibility. It'd be problematic if I didn't have that. RPG. Maybe. Ah, there's our QRF. Landed a bit far away. Doesn't matter. It'll push into us eventually. Okay, so just for the sake of brevity, we can I suppose we can also just go make sure that upstairs guy is dead. Okay, let's prep a frag grenade. Oh, civilians. You might want to run away, buddy. So we know civilian presence is working. And let's just make sure you die. Our hunter killer unit is still moving on us. We know the mortars landed. Didn't do a huge amount of damage, but it helps. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is take a quick jump to the big area because I want to force a vehicle spawn. This is gonna trigger a lot of stuff at once. Shit, where did I end up? Oh, outside the thing. Oh shit. Okay, I can hear the mortars firing. I think I'm a bit too close to the center to force the spawn here. That won't happen in an actual mission because what's the term for it? Oh, yep, mortars are working. It won't happen in an action mission because obviously you aren't teleporting into the AR. Alright, I have to get spotted, don't I? Okay, hold on. Players, teleport players, over here. Let's just go trigger these bastards. There we go. And grab an RPG. Take care of that BTR if we need to. Okay, so we should have triggered a new QRF. Yep, here they come. And also that QRF. Hey, buddy. So far we can tell everything appears to be working as expected. And it appears that the QRF is destined to land up here. And there they get dropped. Oh, somebody missed the parachute. Oh, two people missed the parachute. That's gonna suck for you, buddy. And you too. Yikes. It happens. Sometimes the parachutes just don't take. Yeah, I mean, everything appears to be working as expected. Not really much more we need to... I mean, I suppose we can come look at these points, just make sure they triggered. Or they trigger, rather. One's gonna start firing at us. That's a lot of patrol points. Well, everything appears to be working as expected, so fantastic. I think I'm going to call it there. If you hung around to watch the testing phase, thank you. I don't know if it was really necessary, but there you go, just to make sure everything's working. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll try to get back to you. Cool. Okay, cheers everybody.